Good afternoon. Try it again. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
It's always good to be in a room where you're actually known. Hi, I'm Earl Lewis, and it's my pleasure to serve as the co-chair of the Inclusive History Project. And we're delighted that you have decided to join us for this showcase, whether you're here in person or joining us remotely. We're also pleased to note that this presentation is going to be taped, and so it'll be available to you for future review and inclusion in other kinds of forums of conversations around campus. Let us begin by the land acknowledgement. The University of Michigan is located on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe people. In 1817, the Ojibwe, the Odawa, the Potawatomi nations made the largest single land transfer to the University of Michigan. This was offered ceremonially and a gift through the Treaty of the Foot of the Rapids so that their children could be educated. Through these words of acknowledgement, their contemporary and ancestral ties to the land and their contributions to the university are renewed and reaffirmed. Well, today is the first of what we think will be an annual showcase where we highlight the activities of the Inclusive History Project and, in fact, your work. And so we're delighted to be able to bring this to you today. But no event is possible without acknowledging all of those who actually pulled it together. And so we're grateful for all of those who have made this event possible, including our ASL interpreters, Casey Watson and Stephanie Beatty, our CART, our CART captioner, Annette Blau, the staff at the Student Activities Building, Russell Video, Zingerman's, members of the team at the National Center for Institutional Diversity, those who helped to really get the word out and to help spread the word about this event, including our colleagues in the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, ODE, and the Office of Public Affairs. And then, of course, they're the members of the growing IHP team itself. And all of them have played a tremendous role in bringing us to this moment. So, thank you. Here's our schedule for today. We'll spend the next 30 minutes or so with presentations and where we'll share some updates about year one of the IHP and how we're beginning our efforts to expand the existing historical research on the University of Michigan itself. It is our distinct pleasure to have leaders and representatives from a range of existing projects on the university's past joining us here today, and to hear from them as they share their research. These projects are just the beginning. I mean, you can almost say the tip of an iceberg, but that may not be the right metaphor. So it's just at the beginning. There are many more projects and initiatives that have been going on for some time, and we really want to work to develop them and help really complete a full history of this university, its record of inclusion and exclusion. And we want to figure out also how to continue to build. You'll be hearing from our IHP directors of research, and they come from all three campuses. And after the presentation, we really won't have the opportunity to take questions in this big group setting, but we do want to hear from you. And so we will be sending out a post-event survey. We'll be emailing you directly. And we hope that you will spend some time after the event really engaging us in conversation, questions, and hopefully we can provide answers. For those joining us here in the auditorium, we also invite you to circulate throughout this space, meet the folks from the different projects, talk to them about their work, and get a little something to eat and drink as well. One of the core themes of our effort is collaboration. That really is at the heart of the IHP's work, which is why we want to both recognize and credit existing work while also open up new spaces to hear about new ideas and new ways of exploring the university's past. We're excited to hear from your ideas, and we look forward to sharing some of them in future presentations. To situate us, let's start by pointing out that our event is being held here in the Visitor Center in the Student Activities Building, where over 45,000 visitors come to the University of Michigan each year, and they learn a version of our history. I mean, this is sort of a starting place for a lot of students and prospective students and their parents to learn something about the university. And that's important to note, and it seems like a fitting place to actually start this first of the showcases. But let's zoom in a little bit about what we're trying to accomplish. What is the IHP? What is our overarching mission? The Inclusive History Project is designed to study and document a comprehensive history of the University of Michigan that is attentive to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and stretches across the 3 campuses, including Michigan-Madison. In undertaking this journey of institutional discovery, the University of Michigan commits to changing our conception of the past and to taking action that enables us to build a truly inclusive present and future. It should be noted that the IHP is a presidential initiative and is fully funded by the President's office, but, and we underscore this, we are independent. That is, we are free to pursue our own directions, activities, and decisions independent of any influence from the central administration. The IHP is situated within the National Center for Institutional Diversity, which my co-chair, Professor Liz Cole, directs. And that entity is nestled in the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion on the Ann Arbor campus. Framing and Design Committee. To provide a little sense of how we got to this moment, last year, 2022-2023, a committee of 22 faculty, staff, and students from all 3 campuses met, and they created a framing and design for the overall effort. The task was framing out a 5-year plan for the Inclusive History Project. And that work culminated and concluded with a report that was released in July of 2023 entitled A Design for the Inclusive History Project. And since June, we've been at work trying to execute that design. And I want to draw your attention to this report, which is available for you to download and read and review. (2023 to 2028), that period. So the report outlines what we consider to really be 3 areas of emphasis or focus. The first is research, to produce a new and inclusive history of the university. And that's really the first part. The second part is engagement, to develop those new histories and more deeply understand their impact on the present. And then third, we realize that it's not just enough to research and engage, but in some ways, what's really critical is also to think about redress. How do we begin to redress historical and persistent harms and to change the university's future? And so a lot of what we're thinking about, too, is the reparative actions that are necessary to see true institutional transformation. To put it in a way that situates this building in the story, if the origin story and the story of the University of Michigan that's told by our student guides in 2023 are the same stories we're telling in 2028, we fail. That in some ways, the work that we do should be there to be seen from the very moment that a young prospective student, family, and others actually walk on this campus. And I want to emphasize that each of these areas, research, engagement, and reparative, are applied to not only the Ann Arbor campus, but the Flint and Dearborn, Madison, all aspects of the University of Michigan. The report provides a 5-year plan, and we expect this first phase to run through 2028, but we can also imagine there may be a second phase. And so it's hard to imagine that we can actually cover all that we need to know about the university and its history in a short 5 years, considering the length of this and history of this institution. Now, and I should note, and so this may mean that in the end, we may end up creating something that's a little more permanent, like a center for the university history, as part of a way of sustaining this and going forward. I'm going to turn this over to my co-chair, Liz Cole. I'm going to start again by saying thank you. Thank you for coming to be a part of this showcase, and thank you for your engagement, and thank you for the questions we know that will come. This is about history in a part, yes, but it's also about today, and ultimately it's about tomorrow. And so as we thread yesterday, today, and tomorrow, Liz.
Thanks, Earl. I'm Liz Cole, and I'm co-director of the IHP, and I'm excited to have the chance to share details with you about what we've accomplished this year, but of course, I can't tell you everything in this short presentation. We have really been busy over the past 2 years, so please stay, talk to us during the reception, be lots of chances to learn more. Okay. So as Earl said, this is an ambitious project, and to take that on, this year we've expanded our leadership capacity to help meet that charge. So we built out our executive committee, and we expanded our IHP staff who are supporting us here today. We've also appointed multiple advisory committees to provide guidance on our work. And those committees are made up of a variety of stakeholders. There's community partners, faculty, and staff from across our campuses. So these include a tri-campus IHP advisory committee. There is also an IHP Dearborn steering committee, as well as an IHP Flint steering committee. And we are also in the process of putting together a student advisory committee, and it will have students, both undergrad and grad, from all 3 campuses. So we launched 2 funding opportunities this year to expand participation in the project and to help advance our mission, which is to dig deeper into the university's history. So the first of these is the IHP Fund for Research and Engagement, and that is providing grants to faculty, staff, and students for a wide range of research, engagement, and creative activities that originate outside of the IHP. We also have launched an IHP Teaching Fund that will provide funding for instructional faculty at Dearborn, Flint, and Ann Arbor to develop compelling, innovative undergraduate and graduate teaching about U of M's history. And we made our first grants for 11 new and redesigned courses last month, and in a little bit you'll get to hear more about a couple of them. So today we're thrilled to be joined by 2 of the IHP Teaching Fund grantees who are looking forward to sharing their projects with you during the showcase and during the reception after the presentation. And actually, both of them will be in the back near the food, so that's a good opportunity to connect with them. But I'm going to tell you a little bit about their projects. So the first one I want to tell you about is being taught by Manan Desai, who's an associate professor in the departments of American Culture and the program in Asian Pacific Islander American Studies here on the Ann Arbor campus. In fall of '22, Professor Desai worked with undergraduate students who were part of the United Asian American Organizations, and they collaborated with librarians at the U of M library and also at the Bentley to develop a course that would trace the history of Asian Americans at U of M Ann Arbor. And that culminated in a public history website that featured student-created exhibits. So through an IHP Teaching Fund grant, Professor Desai will be continuing this work in a redesigned course offered in winter of '25. As I sort of segue to the next example, you can see on the slide a list of Teaching Fund grantees, all from the Ann Arbor campus, although we funded courses on the other campuses as well. The second project I'd like to tell you about is being headed by Finn Bell, Professor Finn Bell, who is an assistant professor of human services at U of M Dearborn and leads the Hidden Histories Archive project. So this project looks at a course called Theories and Practice of Social Work, which is required for human services majors at U of M Dearborn. And it uses an anti-racist social justice framework for exploring systemic oppression and equity-focused social change. As part of the framework for the course, students are introduced to the complicated and, frankly, whitewashed history of social welfare in the United States, which too often ignores how social workers have been complicit in atrocities. And this whitewashed history erases the contributions of Black, Indigenous, and people of color as social workers in organizations and methods of social care. Professor Bell will use the IHP Teaching Fund to support and create and implement a new course content module about social welfare and social justice history. And the entire class is going to work together to create an ArcGIS story map on a hidden history topic about U of M's history that will be chosen by the class. So you can see how these courses are an integral part of the way that we're creating the history through this larger project. And you can see here a list of our Teaching Fund grantees from Flint and Dearborn as well. Another thing we've been working on this year is trying to build engagement. And so our efforts around engagement have focused both on communications and programming like this. And right now we're working to really dramatically expand our work in this area for next year because we want people to know about the IHP and we want them to get involved in the IHP, and we hope you will. So in February, we launched the IHP website, which I would really encourage you to take a look at if you're interested in it. I think it's very beautiful. And in February, President Ono used his February video message to express his support and his hopes for the IHP. We've done some other programming this year, obviously this event, but we also have another symposium coming up on April 19th that's called Approaches to Oral History and the Work of Inclusive History, and that will be in partnership with U of M's Eisenberg Institute for Historical Studies. So I think it's a theme today. There is more to come, and we hope you will come with us. So let me tell you a little bit about how we think about the organization of our research projects. So our primary focus in year one, besides that infrastructure stuff I was talking about, is to launch the research arm of the IHP. Working across all three campuses, we've put the procedures and infrastructure into place, but we've also been building partnerships, and we've been developing some projects to advance knowledge and understanding of U of M's full history. Each research project undertaken by the IHP falls into one of these four frames, and these frames came out of the Framing and Design Committee that worked together last year to plan this project. And the frames were envisioned as a way to give some structure and focus to these really wide-ranging research. And you can think of them as themes that stretch across our entire history. So the four frames are origins and trajectories, people and communities, sites and symbols, and then, of course, research and teaching. And so we've used this model of the four frames to guide our work. We originated last summer, and it's been part of how we've been building out the project. So our directors of research, we have one for each campus, in consultation with the IHP leadership team, have seeded additional projects based on their knowledge of the campuses, their review of the suggestions and the feedback that we've received since the IHP was announced, and their ongoing consultation with their committees and folks in their communities. In some cases, our directors are serving as the leaders of these projects, but most of them are being led by faculty and staff members who come from a wide range of schools, colleges, libraries, departments, including social work, journalism, political science, history, American culture, public health, and more. So our vision of this is really something that engages people from across the university. Now, we have a lot of projects going, but I want to tell you about a few of them. One of them is going to be a history of Hill Auditorium, which is a partnership with the University Musical Society and the School of Music, Theater, and Dance. Another big project that we have coming out of the Central IHP is partnering with the Bentley Historical Library to launch the next phase of the African American Student Project. And if you're interested in this topic and you haven't been to the Bentley's website to check out the African American Student Project, there's so much up there already. It's fascinating. You can play with the data. It's a great experience. Also in the works are projects that focus on the history of diversity, equity, and inclusion in athletics. We have another project getting started up on Jewish students, political radicalism, and anti-Semitism at U of M. We are working on a community archives project, and again, that's in collaboration with the Bentley. Now we're going to pivot a little and start, I feel like we've been talking about the IHP. Now we're going to give you a chance to actually hear the IHP. We're going to do a deeper dive into 3 of these foundational projects. The origin of U of M Flint's DEI centers, a project that we call the 1817 Project, Land, Culture, Memory, and Repair, and that's taking place on Ann Arbor's campus. And then the 1959 project, which is going to look at University of Michigan Dearborn's origins and timelines. So I'm excited now to invite some colleagues up to the podium to tell us more about these new and ongoing projects. And how we're going to do this is I will briefly introduce all the professors, or all the presenters, and they'll each take a few minutes to tell you about their work, and when they're done speaking, they'll invite the next presenter up. So just briefly, our presenters are Lisa Leiprus, who's an associate professor of health science and administration at U of M Flint, and she's also the IHP director of research for Flint. Jay Cook, who's professor of history and American culture in Ann Arbor, and he's also the IHP director of research for the Ann Arbor campus. Cam Amin, who's professor of Middle East and Iranian diaspora studies at U of M Dearborn, and Cam is the IHP director of research for Dearborn. And then we're also lucky to have Justin Schell here, who's the director of digital scholarship and creative spaces at the University Library here on the Ann Arbor campus. And we'll also hear from Bethany Hughes, who's assistant professor of American culture, again here on the Ann Arbor campus. So I'm really pleased to invite Lisa Leiprus to the stage. Thanks, Lisa.
So as Liz stated, my name is Lisa Leiprus, and I'm the director for research at the U of M Flint campus. My pronouns are she, her, and ella. I'm pleased to share some information about the work we've undertaken on the Flint campus this fall. The first and perhaps the most significant milestone we've accomplished this far is the formation of our advisory board. And in working with this group, I asked them, what would you like to be called? Do you want to be an advisory board? Do you want to be, what is it? And they decided on the name, The Big Table. They said that they felt that this was non-hierarchical and that everybody's welcome. And so this is a 12-member team who's composed of U of M Flint staff, faculty, and community partners. The U of M faculty and staff are members of various departments and programs, including the Francis William Thompson Library and Archives, the Office of Educational Opportunity Initiatives, and the departments of History, English, Social Work, and Public Health. Our community partners, who are part of the Big Table, also represent a broad and diverse set of interests and expertise, and this includes representatives from the Arab American Heritage Council, the Latinx Technology and Community Center, the Environmental Transportation Movement of Flint, the Sloan Museum, and the Community Foundation of Greater Flint. Members of the Big Table meet twice monthly to provide critical guidance and direction. They help direct the priorities and ethical implications of U of M Flint's IHP projects and efforts. The Big Table is actively developing research projects focused on the history of the Flint campus. And I've also been working to cultivate a multi-center project to explore student activism in the establishment of 5 different DEI centers on our campus. So we're not looking at all of them. We're starting with 5 just to make it a little bit more feasible. The 5 centers that we're starting with are the Center for Gender and Sexuality, the Intercultural Center, the Center for Global Engagement, which may seem a little odd, but it's actually the Center for International Students, but it got renamed. The Student Veterans Resource Center, and the Office of Educational Opportunity Initiatives. In addition to exploring the role of student activism in the establishment of these centers, we will explore how changes in leadership and fiscal decisions have shaped these centers' priorities and programming abilities over time. So I'll leave it there for now, but I hope that as we circulate during the reception, you'll come and ask me about the Big Table and about the projects. So now I'd like to invite my colleague Jay Cook up to the podium.
Thank you, Lisa, and hello, everybody. It's really nice to see everyone here today. As Lisa said, my name's Jay Cook, and I'm the Director of Research for the IHP of the Ann Arbor campus. I'm really pleased to have a chance to say a few words about the 1817 project. As Liz was explaining, this is one of a number of major project sites within our frames. It's one of 5 big emerging project sites in Ann Arbor, but it's really one of the foundational projects for the IHP as a whole and was recommended by last year's framing committee that Liz also mentioned. As many of you know, this date, 1817, corresponds to a pair of pivotal events. On the one hand, this was the moment of creation for the newly imagined University of Michigan, then a single building in the city of Detroit. But this was also the moment, powerfully articulated in Article 16 of the treaty at the foot of the rapids, AKA the Treaty of Fort Meigs, of a strategic land transfer made by members of the Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi nations with the hope that by contributing to the emerging college in Detroit, some of their children may be hereafter educated. Now today, many of us seek to honor this important and pivotal act with U of M land acknowledgements read at public events like this one. To a surprising extent, however, the complex history behind these events remains understudied and only vaguely understood. Many of us, for example, may not realize that U of M was not actually built upon the ceded lands described in Article 16. More accurately, these lands were later chosen and located by U of M administrators for their potential value and repurposed as valuable assets, fungible assets, a multi-decade process which helped the fledgling university, which was in serious financial trouble in the 1820s, to stay afloat through its precarious early history. It's also important to note that the land cessions of 1817 were part of a much larger cycle of settler colonialism across the Great Lakes region that cut across most of the 19th century. While the University of Michigan was not the lone or central motor here, much of our early history converged with this process of Native American land dispossession in ways that we're only now beginning to fully understand. A good example can be found in the figure of Lewis Cass, one of the signatories of the 1817 treaty. At this moment, Cass was also the the federally appointed governor of the Michigan Territory. He was the superintendent of Indian Affairs, and he was the chair of the University of Michigan Board of Trustees through the 1820s. So he's occupying all of these different positions at once. Today, of course, Cass's name lives on all around us, attached to dozens of streets, counties, and public institutions across much of the northern Midwest. Cass Tech in Detroit, for example, or the Cass Corridor are good examples. Less clear is how to think about Cass's work of the 1820s, a period in which he was, quite literally, arguing publicly for the removal of Native people while also managing much of the early development of the University of Michigan. It was Cass, for example, who was appointed by the US Secretary of the Treasury to select the actual locations of the ceded lands for their profit and value from the 1817 treaty for the benefit of our university. I mention all of this to give you a clear sense of the kinds of complex questions we hope to explore through the 1817 project. Work on this foundational project site will include deep multidisciplinary research into the origins of U of M, the settlement of the Michigan Territory and then state, and the larger process of Native American land dispossession, as well as how this process has been subsequently represented, contested, and addressed through legal challenges, student activism, and state legislation. You'll hear more about that in a moment. Given the importance of this work, we're very fortunate to have the support of a powerhouse leadership team to guide this project forward. Professors Bethany Hughes, who is here today, and Michael Witgen, now at Columbia University, have generously agreed to serve as the co-PIs for the first phases of our research. And next week, an 1817 Project Advisory Committee composed of top Native American Studies faculty, U of M administrators, and tribal historians from across our state will begin the work of defining priorities and setting parameters. Above all else, our hope is to build this foundational IHP project in ways that are fully transparent, carefully researched, respectful and inclusive of tribal communities across our state and region, and reparative in our future actions. Please join us in this work. Thank you. And I'll leave it there for now. I'm happy to answer questions during the reception, and I look forward to discussing this project more with many of you in the future. I'd like to now invite my colleague, Cam Amin, up to the podium.
Thank you very much, Jay. I am Cam Amin, Director of Research for the IHP at the Dearborn campus. And in addition to things I'm about to tell you about, we've been very busy setting up a steering committee, startup committee, faculty fellowship, as a team, and a student internship program. But also, I'm looking forward to sharing information with you today about the 1959 project, particularly its oral history initiatives. The 1959 project site was launched this year to investigate our campus's origins in the UM system and to provide a fuller account of all those who have contributed to where we are today. In addition to the oral history initiatives, the 1959 project will support research into our campus archive at Mardigian Library, an important partner for us, as well as new initiatives based on sort of survey research and focus group research. This year, the 1959 project is leveraging the expertise of existing DEI-informed digital humanities projects to digitally curate archived interviews and new interviews for public databases hosted once again by Mardigian Library in their digital collections. Using tools like the Oral History Metadata Synchronizer, or OHMS, you OHMS things to make them easier to Google, in case you're wondering. I'm really glad you laughed. With me, not at me. Thank you. These databases will make it easier for researchers to navigate to the exact spot in the interview, because everyone loves oral histories except listening to them. They like to get to the right spot. OHMS also permits us to add in other contextualizing information into the transcript, like GPS coordinates, so we can track people. No, so we can visualize where they've been. The OHMS viewer will be embedded into a page that allows us to add even more context for the interview, such as academic publications about the topics in the interview, or images of archival documents. This work will be overseen by UM Dearborn's Program Coordinator for Digital Humanities, Marlene Medrick, who's over at our table in the back. Hey, Marlene. Ask her everything, because she knows everything about this project. Marlene joined us in January. We are working on the curation of archived interviews with William E. Sturton, the Vice Chancellor, who was the first director of the Dearborn campus, although he was the Vice Chancellor in Ann Arbor, from 1959 to 68. Helen Graves, a professor of political science who helped found UM Dearborn's Commission for Women in 1974. And Chancellor Belinda J. Wilson, who became both the first African-American and first woman to lead any of the University of Michigan campuses, and indeed the first woman to lead any public university in Michigan. She led from 89 to 92. The 1959 project is also prioritizing an effort to identify and interview members of the campus community who remember the earlier days of our campus and key inflection points in the DEI efforts in the history of our campus. This work will involve many paid student interns, hours funded by the IHP. It is important to note how labor-intensive this work can be. For every hour of a fully curated presented oral history narrative, you might imagine up to 100 hours of curation time and other work to make it fully discoverable and fully accessible online. I'll transition now from talking about IHP work generally to talking about two projects that I'm more closely involved with. I've passed the first test of my presentation. Yes, you may applaud. It's fine. The Michigan Middle East Travelers Oral History Project, or MIAOHP, is the project that will most directly inform our approach to digital curation of oral history collections for the Inclusive History Project at Dearborn. MIAOHP's approach to digital curation was actually adapted from an earlier project, the Michigan Iranian American Oral History Project, or MIAOHP, using several tools to make the collections more discoverable, searchable, accessible to the widest possible audience. The metadata that we develop makes it easier to find details within each interview and to compare themes across all the interviews in the MIAOHP collection. Even in this relatively small number of interviews in MIAOHP collection conveys a sense of the diversity within the Iranian American community in Michigan. And as we prepare for today's event, it was pretty easy for us to find a few clips to share that find connections to University of Michigan's history, even though these early interviews were nothing to do with this particular project. They're all prior. At our table, we'll have interviews, clips from both the MIAOHP and MIAOHP collections, and I hope you'll come by and listen to a few. But only because today, if only because today is Nowruz, a day which people from Iran and other places celebrate as the first day of the new year. So Happy New Year to all of you. Let me share two clips from the MIAOHP collection to illustrate the connections between the University of Michigan and the Iranian American diaspora. I get to talk less with oral history, so it's great for you and me.
How much supervision did you have while you were in your program in Ann Arbor? Was there some sort of...
Well, first of all, the English required you to watch TV from, say, 4 o'clock to 4 p.m. to 8 p.m.
Right.
And in the mornings, we had classes, and then it was a lot of conversations.
So just rehearsed conversations, or... Right.
They would explain things. One of the things that happened, they explained a lot of things about U.S. to us.
What kinds of things did they explain to you?
Just how the government is, how the elections are.
Did you find their explanations to be true as you got to know things on your own?
I think so, yeah, I never found.
Yeah, it's my dad.
How do you connect with your Iranian heritage in Michigan? What are the ways in which you do that?
I was very fortunate to get invited to the speech by a Persian poet, writer, Ahmad Shamlu, and I am surprised how anybody knew I was in Michigan, because I had no connections when I moved to Michigan. And so I was glad. That's how I met the Persians there at that speech at the University of Michigan. Then I made an effort to become acquainted with the Department of Middle Eastern and North African Studies at UM in Ann Arbor. And there also met the unofficial Persian gathering, the poetry night, Persian poetry reading night, which is held twice in Ann Arbor. Those who initiated the gathering were people who came later life to the U.S. and English was foreign to them. So they started that just for their own solace, I think. And the others who appreciated the language and the literature, we enjoyed just seeing Persian faces, hearing Persian, language, and Persian cooking, of course.
Of course. With MIAOHP, we aspired to have students conduct and curate interviews under my supervision rather than me doing all the interviews, because that's exhausting. We did it in a course called Public History in Arab Detroit. And due to the lingering pandemic in the winter term of 22, which is when that course happened, students did this work in an asynchronous online instructional mode, many conducting interviews via Zoom. Students interviewed travelers to Egypt, Gaza, Lebanon, Israel, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Oman, Kuwait, the UAE, Iran, Iraq, Yemen, and just to make things post-Ottoman, Albania. The transnational aspects of our students' lives and the lives of their interviewees were underscored by the fact that some were interviewed while they were actually in the Middle East physically. MIAOHP did a soft launch in 23 with over 20 metadata curated interviews. All but one of those interviews were conducted by Dearborn students. The next phase of MIAOHP was being organized with the mission of the Inclusive History Project firmly in mind. We're going to focus on interviewees who are part of the campus community, bring them to the project through a process of surveys and focus groups. We're going to explore connections between regimes of immobility, mobility, and feelings of belonging on our campus. We've just begun working on the survey instrument for MIAOHP Phase 2, and my team thinks that the integrated methodology is going to help us with other 1959 initiatives, such as rethinking our public-facing official timeline. I look forward to talking with you more about all of that, but that is time for me, very much time for me. I want to invite Justin Schell to the podium to share about the Justice Indeed program.
We have very practiced choreography to get on and off of the stage today. So thank you, everybody. I'm Justin Schell. I'm at the University Library. I direct the Digital Scholarship and Creative Spaces Department, and I'm one of the co-leads of Justice Indeed with some of my friends and colleagues over there at our table, which I hope you'll come say hi to. This is our logo. It was designed in 2021 by Kaylee Johnson, who was a stamp student who graduated in 2021. So I just wanted to give a quick content warning. There you will see some racist language because of our subject. We think it's important to engage with the text itself within these documents and within these histories, but please take care of yourself as needed as part of this. So the Justice Indeed is looking at the history of racially restrictive covenants in Washtenaw County. These are documents, these were clauses in property records that basically said whites only. And we see these from, the earliest we've seen is 1907, and we have seen them up into the 1960s, even though they were rendered unenforceable in the 1940s for the Supreme Court decision, and then made illegal with the passage of the Fair Housing Act. And so here are some examples of racially restrictive covenants that we have found throughout the county. So these lots should not be used nor sold to people not of the Caucasian race. Caucasian is misspelled. No persons or any race other than the Caucasian race shall use or occupy any building or any lot, except that this covenant shall not prevent occupancy by domestic servants of a different race domiciled with an owner or tenant. So you could live on this property if you were a person of color, as long as you were a servant. And sometimes we see this language of being kept as a servant. Sub-premises shall at no time be used or occupied for manufacturing purposes, nor by a colored person or persons for any purpose. We will also see things like no livestock and things like that. This level of dehumanization that primarily towards Black folks in these. We see African descent. We also see anti-Semitic elements to these. So persons of African or Jewish descent, nor aliens excepting such as are descendant from the English-speaking race. There's all sorts of, really, horrifying sort of racial logics going on within these documents. We have been generously funded by the Anti-Racism Collaborative to do an equitable partnership with Future Root, and that is led by Yodit Mesvin-Johnson and Jessica A.S. Lita. Jessica is over there. Come say hi. And Future Root is a community-centered design and strategy lab focused on race, place, and history via stories that transform. And they have this really lovely phrase, reckon, remember, and reimagine. And so we can't really do just action until we reckon with the injustices of the past. And we have to remember and stand on the shoulders not just of those people who have come in the past, but those who have worked on and fought these struggles beforehand. One of the pieces of racial covenant history is that this was the NAACP's #1 legal priority for many decades in the first half of the 20th century. And then reimagine more just futures. Once we have done this reckoning and remembering, we can start reimagining more just futures. So I'll talk a little bit about how we're trying to live that as part of Justice Indeed. This is a covenant for the West Willow subdivision in Unit 1. And it is one of the more sort of explicit and sort of vicious ones. There you see the language of being kept as a domestic servant, but also no person of Japanese, Chinese, Mexican, Hindu, Philippine, Ethiopian, Indian, or Mongolian shall be deemed to be Caucasian in this. Some of our law students and other Justice Indeed team members have partnered with Neighborhood Association in West Willow to work on repealing this covenant. And we may have heard on the news over the last couple of years, some neighborhoods repealing covenants. We didn't want to focus on neighborhoods who were the beneficiaries of these covenants and sort of excluded the people who could be there. But also West Willow, despite that covenant and its origins, is a predominantly African-American neighborhood now. And so we're working closely with them on the process to actually repeal that covenant. Also, this project is about, again, repairing the harms done by these. So working with the Exploratory Committee on Reparations within Washtenaw County, how this work can inform those, what kinds of remedies can we find and create based upon this information. And for this audience specifically, we want to see where the university shows up in these documents. And so this is one example of the university selling a piece of property to someone else. This one is the university buying a piece of property from the Killen-Sturberg First Edition. Does anybody know, besides Brian, where the Killen-Sturberg First Edition is or was? That is the land the stadium is on. So what we have set up here is a Zooniverse project, a crowdsourcing project, where you can go in and help us identify covenants within about 10,000 Washtenaw County property records. Over on the table over there, we will have a couple different machines. You can try this out, and we'll guide you through that. And you can also do it afterwards yourself, because we need all of your support to make this happen. So thank you, and I'm going to introduce and bring up Bethany Hughes for her talk.
Halito, so hochifayat Bethany Hughes, Chatasia Hoke. Hello, I'm Bethany Hughes. I'm a member of the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma, and I'm on faculty in the Department of American Culture, and I'm a core faculty member in the Native American Studies program. So I just walked across the street to get here. Today I'm going to talk to you just really briefly about a project that I am a co-PI on with the Native American Student Association here on the Ann Arbor campus of U of M. So this is a piece of a much larger question that I am going to be working on in the 1817 project about contemporary iterations and impact of the treaty and the relationship between the university and Native communities in Ann Arbor and in Michigan at large. So I'll talk to you about this one. This is perhaps called a community engaged project. There's going to be lots of different names for it. So the Native American Student Association e-board, the leaders of the Native Student Association, NASA is what I'll call it, and I are working together on this project. NASA has been around a little over 50 years. If you're in town and available, the 50th anniversary Dance for Mother Earth powwow is happening this weekend at Skyline. Please come, eat food, buy earrings, dance if you want. So NASA is of an age where its founders are starting to be of a different kind of age, and the desire to capture and record and share the stories of those who began this work and those who continued this work for the multiple decades sort of came to light in the last few years based on like this moment of the 50th anniversary gala. And so last fall, NASA students and I piloted this project, which will be developed over the next several years, housed within the IHP. And it is both archival work, so we had part of the research team working in the Bentley Library looking for institutionally kept documents around Native student issues, the development of the Native American advocate as a position in the 1970s, oftentimes the things that show up in the archives are points of activism and advocacy that Native students are using that are quite disruptive to the institution. So there tends to be more documents around these very disruptive moments to the institution. What we were finding is there was significantly less documentation and recording of just the average Native student's experience in the space. And so from there, we felt we really needed to do interviews. And so this year and beyond, we're starting to focus on oral history as a project. And to make sure that we are focusing on that. Last fall, the students worked, we did skill development in workshops, and they developed a list of questions that they want to ask alumni and current students. And then the end product, which was what the students wanted, was a website, which is the QR code. You can go to it's a very prototype, but just let you know, there's some things to work out. But this is the website. They wanted something that was accessible no matter where you were in the world, so that alumni who weren't locally didn't have to like come to a library, go to a physical place. They wanted it accessible. And they decided they wanted to focus on a timeline of significant events for the organization, that they wanted to focus on history, specifically the space for oral history, and community, and look at powwow specifically as a place that was not institutionally focused, but community investment. And what does it look like to have a flourishing Native community that was building into itself and in a wider Michigan outreach. And then the final area was activism, because though the points of activism and a disruption are not the only thing that shaped the Native community, it is very significant history. So these are things like the 1970s lawsuit, which is about treaty rights, to the Tower occupation in the early 2000s, to present day advocacy for sort of better and more complete smudging policies for Native students to be able to access their spiritual practices. So I am happy to answer more questions. And we have a student, researcher, and member of NASA who's also here who'll be available to answer questions. And I will hand it back to Liz.
Thank you, Bethany. And I want to take a moment to thank all our presenters again. Will you join me? Okay. So as we mentioned earlier, rather than taking questions, we invite you, whether you're here in person or whether you're here remotely, to share your thoughts and feelings and ideas through a feedback form that we're going to share in a moment. And if you're here, we also encourage you to chat with us. You've seen us. And as I mentioned over by the food, you can meet with Professor Desai and Professor Bell to hear about their IHP-sponsored courses. If you're watching us remotely in Ann Arbor and the spirit moves you, why don't you come on over to the Student Activities building right now? Not only do we have nice food at our reception from Zingerman's, we also have some swag, and we invite all of you here in the room to partake. So, but you know, I get the dubious honor of being the person standing between you and the party, but I want to say one more thing, which is to tell you more ways to get involved, both in the future and today. So consider applying for grants from the IHP Research and Engagement Fund or from the Teaching Fund, and our website has more information. You know, we really see the process of this project as equally important as the products, and we want an engaged and open and transparent process. So if you have an idea, if you want to get involved, You can apply for one of our grants or come talk to us. If you're a student, you can take a course supported by the IHP Teaching Fund or related to one of our IHP research projects. And in that way, you can learn about a more inclusive history of U of M, and in some of these courses, you can even help create that knowledge. We invite you to attend our April 19th symposium on oral history and the work of inclusive history. At a much more smaller level, you can join our mailing list to stay up to date about happenings, funding opportunities, and upcoming events. So you in this room are the people, I assume, who are very interested in this, so please, engage with us, reach out, and stay tuned. Today, as I mentioned, we hope you'll meet with folks involved with the IHP at the stations, and we ask again that everyone fill out our post-event survey and send us feedback. We've been talking to people for the last almost 2 years, and we get so much rich information. We hear about people's personal stories. We hear about material they have. So please come talk to us. And so I'm just going to finish up by echoing what Earl said earlier. The reason we want so much for you to be involved is it's important to us to co-create an inclusive history of U of M. And our goal is to make yesterday clearer, today more focused, and tomorrow brighter. So thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to continuing the conversation with you. Thanks.